Your Creative Push, episode 84.
Without having that roadmap, it's more of a wish than an actual goal. So if you're serious about becoming an artist, it's important to know why.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Sergio Lopez. Sergio, aka The Main Loop, is a North Bay area-based fine artist who specializes in oil landscapes, contemporary nude figures, plein air paintings, and charcoal drawings. He's won multiple awards, has been featured in Juxtapoz, Hi-Fructose, Spectrum, and Bluecanvas, as well as many online publications. He's also the co-founder of the North Bay Plein Air Painters Group and has been helping organize monthly paintouts since 2009. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got into plein air painting, which is, for people who don't know, it's painting outdoors. How did that kind of start?
Oh, yeah. When I first started doing art full time, I was actually a concept artist doing environment design for a startup company that's no longer around. They hired me to do environment design, but everything in my portfolio was basically figures, a few props and things here and there. But I didn't hardly know what I was doing. And so one of the things I thought I would do to basically teach myself was to go out and start painting landscapes from life on location. From there, I always liked oil painting, and I did a little bit of oil painting landscapes in school, but not very much. It wasn't until I got out there and started doing it on a regular basis that I started finding out how much I loved to actually be out there and paint oils on location. And it just kept going from there. When I started hooking up with other plein air painters in my area, I learned about plein air competitions and this whole plein air circuit that's out there. And I started just going into it from there. And that was kind of my step into the world of fine art and galleries in general. Was a lot of networking through the people that I learned or that I met through the plein air scene.
Very cool. And what would you say is the difference? What really attracted you to painting outdoors, and what do you see as the difference between that and in a studio per se?
When I first started doing plein air, a lot of it was because I wanted to paint something from life, and I didn't always have access to models regularly like I did in school. And so everywhere around you was basically this model for you to draw inspiration and education from, just by observing what you see in front of you, painting it. So that's what first got me into doing it in the beginning, weekly practice. And so all the lessons that you learn from just intensely observing something, you can do that with any subject that you want to work from or observe. And when I go in to do a painting in the studio, it's a lot of just working off of what you've kind of learned from observing everything else. So even now when I paint from photos, I almost never paint from something that I haven't painted yet before. For example, I'll do a painting of a seascape that I took a bunch of photos of, but I also did a study of on location. I rarely ever do something that I just painted from photos anymore, because I just don't trust the photo and my memory only just to get the feeling of being there. A lot of that feeling of being there is captured in the study at the moment. And so if I could embed it into my memory that much better, then that's a lot more effective of a outcome in the studio for me. And that will go for anything that I do. When I first started doing the series of figures, I didn't really do much prep work with the model in front of me besides taking photos. And now I kind of want to insist on it if I can.
So for you, the paint, it's more about the experience of actually being there and kind of trying to portray that in the painting as well?
Yeah, I think a successful landscape painting is one that you can really get a lot of the sense of being there. When you put too much in between you and the environment, like with a photograph or anything else, the more you can derive from the source, whether it's sketches or color studies and photographs. I mean, I use a lot of photographs and do a lot of processing them in Photoshop to get them kind of approximately to the colors I remember seeing in front of me. But for me, the goal is to have something that feels like I was there or I'm still standing there, getting that feeling that I remember. It might not be the viewer's experience, but as long as I can relate what I saw to everybody else, I think that's successful for me.
Very cool. Like, so these paint outs that you do, that you help organize and that you participate in, can you talk about them a little bit? Like, what is that like?
I haven't been doing it as often lately just because I've been too busy with other live things. But yeah, me and my friend Gerald, we started this meetup group together, North Bay Plein Air. If you're on Meetup in that area and you find our group on there, that's the one that we started back in 2009. And it started because kind of what I was saying before, where I just wanted to network and see what was out there and see if there were like-minded people. It was a little bit before now that plein air is just sort of blown up, like the whole idea of like capital plein air, where it's kind of almost this little cottage industry. It was like right before that really took off. And so I was just out there taking part in something that I just thought that I wanted to do. I didn't really have an idea that I was going to try and do all these plein air events, but it just kind of started from there. We've been doing it now for, what's it now, like almost 7 years. And it's just something that we just do for fun. Mm-hmm. We don't really charge like a fee to do it. It was just kind of whoever wants to show up can show up.
And then what would you suggest to somebody who, never really thought about, painting outside or taking their canvas outside or doing their art outside, and, hearing you talk about it today kind of made their eyebrows raise for the first time? What would you suggest to them to kind of get started, to maybe try it out?
I would suggest actually getting out there with as little supplies as you can get away with at first, because what you might find is you're going to need a lot of gear, but it's all very personal to every painter, what they decide to take out in the field with them and how they choose to pack it up and everything. Start with like the basic minimum things. If you're an oil painter, or even if you've never tried oils, go out there with just a little cheap easel or something of some sort, and then the more you paint, the more you'll realize like, oh, I need this or I don't need that, and you just keep kind of like, after every time you just kind of realize what you need and don't need. You'll need like the basic amount of colors and everything like that, and I don't know if I need to just like pull out a list or anything right now, but
no.
I think there's there's plenty of people online that can tell you all that, and maybe I don't know, write a blog post or something about like the basics and how to start and do all that. But I would just say like, find out first if that's something that you really want to do. I mean, some people don't like to do plein air, and they just like find out that, oh, I actually like being in the studio and painting where it's like more comfortable. But it's worth checking out. I mean, worth giving it a shot. If you're a person who paints in the studio and never has gone out, I'd say you're missing out on a lot. But yeah, just start out with as little as you can, and then, I mean, I still take out and put in new stuff. I'm always like constantly experimenting with what I want to do outdoors and whatnot, and changing my approaches, and that means changing my supplies every so often too. So yeah, it's always a learning process.
Yeah, definitely something to check out, or at least try. Like you said, it's not for everybody, but maybe just, expand your horizons a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I did in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. Could you take us back to one of your earliest memories of being creative?
Well, as far back as I can remember, I don't remember never doing art. Like I always, as a little kid, I was drawing things. Like I was just like copying comic books or cartoons or anything like that. At that point, I don't know if it's like really being creative or just like interpreting somebody else's creativity. First time I felt like I had my own idea was I used to as a little kid I had tons of stuffed animals. Like that was just like, I don't know, my thing as a little kid, and I would give them all personalities and draw like stories and or I would make stories for them and make like comic books out of them and things like that. So that would be the first thing I ever did was when I first went to school, I actually studied illustration, and so I always thought that I was going to draw comics and stuff, but it just turned out that I liked painting and illustrating things a lot more.
And then what was the kind of the moment that you realized that, you know, comics weren't for you?
Well, when I got to school, I quickly realized that I was kind of in the wrong department. Like I actually, my first semester, I was a animation major, and then I realized I saw what everybody else was doing in illustration and fine art, and decided, oh, that's what I actually wanted to do. Right. I was thinking that, I don't know, I was just so ignorant about art in general, and quickly just like found a passion for studying the old masters and like early American illustration and things like that. And I looked at that and I was just like, I don't know, I was just blown away by all of it and what the third and fourth year students, what they were doing. And I was just like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. And that just kind of goes to show you that, you know, it's never too late to switch it up or just, you know, do multiple things like you do. Like, how is that for you? Like with, cause you do a lot of different mediums and styles. You just do whatever kind of feels right at the moment and just go for it.
Yeah, kind of. For me, I get kind of bored easily. Like as far as like genres I do, like it kind of just goes back and forth. There's a bit of a seesaw for me sometimes. Like sometimes I'll spend months just feeling really passionate about what I'm doing with my landscapes and things, and then after a while, I start to get a little bit itching to go back to doing more figures, and it just kind of goes back and forth that way for me. I just get sort of different things out of it. Like for me right now, I'm actually more really into what I'm doing with the figures than I am with the landscapes. So I just have more ideas and creativity in that aspect. And I know eventually I'll want to go back to the other one. So I don't even really worry about it. It's just knowing that I have those two things, that I get two different things out of. And I don't know, one fulfills me more at one time, and then the pendulum sort of swings back the other way. And it just kind of goes that way for me.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that are creative, they have multiple ways of expressing that creativity, and I think that sometimes people get held up on, oh well, I'm defining myself as, you know, a painter in this style, or I'm defining myself as a photographer, I'm defining myself as a writer of this genre, or whatever it may be. And I think a lot of times people can get held up on that, like by defining themselves by one thing. So it's really inspirational to hear that you just do whatever is kind of like in your heart, you know, or whatever your brain's telling you to do. I love that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of lucky that I'm able to do that, because I am doing fine art, and although it's not like financially the biggest payoff yet, the trade-off for me is still worth it, that I get to do that, that I have that freedom.
Yeah, that freedom is definitely very, very valuable. Are there some things that initially like kind of held you back from painting or doing anything creative, and maybe some things that hold you back on a daily basis from getting the work done?
I'd say like the initial things were more just at first, like everybody telling you that, oh, what are you doing, trying to be an artist or whatever, that sort of thing. I didn't get a lot of that from my parents, like a lot of people seem to have. They would probably rather that I did something more financially lucrative, but they're completely supportive of what I do. But I think it's just more of like the whole societal pressure of people saying that like artists constantly kind of having to justify their reason to want to be creative and be paid for it. Like that's kind of like a constant sort of thing that is in the back of every artist's head. I think sometimes they go through a little bit of like mini existential crises all the time of being like, what's this all about? Is what I'm doing with on a canvas like worth it? Like, what does it mean to society and the world and everything like that? So you go through bouts of that, and you just kind of keep in mind that what you're exploring as an artist, it just is what people explore in different genres and different ways of creativity. And we're just fortunate that we get to do that so often and so deeply on a daily basis, basically. And that it's actually a fortunate thing that you're able to even contemplate these sorts of things rather than be in a job where you're just like a cog in the machine or whatever. So that's one way of looking at it. And then, you know, there's also other little things, like the completely practical things of like, oh, you have to also be kind of your own marketer and businessman at least in the very beginning, where you have to just, you know, do all the things that make up running a small business. Because if you're a full-time painter, that's basically what you are. You're doing all that stuff constantly, and there's no rest from that either. Like I can literally just work on my art or my business 24/7, and that's not like a rare thing. That's just something that you realize that's what you signed up for if you as a full-time fine artist. But I mean, for me, the personal payoffs are all worth it.
Absolutely, yeah. You do have to be your own boss financially if you're doing it full time, but I guess even the harder part is being your own boss, kind of mentally, you know, to make yourself, you know, do the work, and then to also, as you said, realize that you are lucky. You know, you are lucky to be able to express yourself in this way and help other people to understand kind of the world with your art.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, how do you kind of balance your time?
It took a while to get to a certain sort of rhythm that I got into. Like I'm a night owl. I paint late, although I don't really pull all-nighters and things if I don't really need to. I'm not that type of person where I get obsessed on a certain thing like that. It's just that, I don't know, I feel like my schedule would be fairly normal, like because I do have like certain things I tend to do like at the certain time. They're just like, I don't know, shifted 4 hours ahead of what everybody else is doing at normal times. So,
right.
Yeah, I just got into a certain rhythm where I try to do all the computer stuff during the day when I'm at home, because I actually don't have Wi-Fi and internet at the studio. Like I have a studio that I pay for. It's a good place to have. If I need to get a hold of somebody or look something up, I always have my phone on me, and that has internet capabilities. So there's that part of it. But for the most part, I try to do everything that I need to do, that I need to like go to the store at normal hours and all that. I try to get all those errands done during the day. I don't usually get to the studio before 3 p.m. these days. But then I work sometimes until 2 a.m. at night with a couple hour breaks in between. I do work like 6 to 8 hours a day usually, but it's just, you know, shifted like that much further ahead of everybody else's schedule.
Yeah, I work nights. I work 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. So I can completely relate. And it's hard to sometimes when you want to do social activities, if you want to, you know, do quote what I call real people things.
Yeah, exactly.
that start at 10 a.m. It's a little difficult to kind of get back on, you know, that schedule. But I'm right there with you. I can't. Well, my job is at night, but I also historically I am just not a morning person. I can't really creatively think in the morning. Mm-hmm. But then at night, it's just like the ideas kind of flow. It's interesting that you kind of have to go with that. If you want to pursue those, you know, creative passions, you have to kind of know your body and know your brain and when those ideas and that kind of motivation can come to you and work with it.
Yeah, I think that's part of why I an artist too, because I just don't function well with normal hours. Yeah.
And I also love the idea of, for the formula for balancing your time, have a Wi-Fi-less studio. That's so important. I say that at the end of almost every episode. I'm like, turn the internet off and go do your work. It's really important, because if you have that temptation of going on the internet or chatting or whatever, if you know it's there, then you'll just a lot of times just go for it subconsciously.
Yeah, in the beginning, when I first started doing it full-time, fine art, I didn't really have that discipline locked down either. I was always like, especially when I was working here at home and what I do when I paint at the studio is I paint from a little tablet, and so the tablet is only Wi-Fi enabled, so I can't use it for internet at all.
Nice.
But when I was here at home, it was the computer that, was my desktop computer with my screen on it. So anytime something would pop up, like, oh, there's that distraction right there. So since I don't do that anymore, it's a lot easier for me to focus on things, on what I should be doing.
Yeah, it's like we said before about being your own boss mentally. It's one of the things you gotta know your habits, and if you're prone to seeing what's happening on the news, on the internet, on Facebook, on whatever, you gotta almost turn it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a favorite book or a YouTube clip or song or anything that you kind of draw inspiration from, and that maybe that we could too?
I wouldn't call this one a favorite. It's a book that I really like. I think it's underrated, so it'd be a good thing to turn people on to. There's this book came out a few years ago. It might be out of print, but it's a book about Harvey Dunn, who was an American illustrator, came from he was one of Howard Pyle's original students. So he was a huge influence on a lot of artists of that time, like Dean Cornwell. I think he was Dean Cornwell's main teacher. Not only does it have a lot of really great paintings in it by him, but there's a section that he talks a lot about. He has a lot of quotes and sort of inspirational teachings and things like that I think it was other students of his compiled it. And it's a little bit like, I don't know if you ever read Robert Henry's Art Spirit.
Oh, I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, if people are familiar with that book, it's similar to that. It's worth checking out. It might have been James Gurney who wrote a little bit about the book too. And if you go through his blog and I don't know, search out Harvey Dunn, I think he has a few of the quotes from it on there. So if that's something that your listeners might be into, they should check it out.
Very cool. And we'll have that linked up at yourcreativepush.com/main loop.
Awesome.
Sergio, it is time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to kind of reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already inspired today, and give them your best advice and push them to do it.
I would say find out why you want to do it. As soon as you figure out why, it's a lot easier to focus your energy and resources on how to do it, because you'll have a goal to strive for. Without having that roadmap, it's more of a wish than an actual goal. So if you're serious about going out there and becoming an artist, it's important to know why. Is it a soul-fulfilling thing, or is it more of a ego-driven thing? And that's just something that I guess is personal to everybody. To me, it's kind of a mixture of both, but I think that's all right. Yeah, I think it's just important to know why you want to create art, and it will inform you of what you want to say with your art, or what you don't want to say with your art too. A lot of that is just trial and error. So yeah, just go out there and try not to let outside judgment determine what you should or shouldn't paint.
I love it. Yeah, figure out the goal for yourself. Don't let the outsiders tell you what you're doing it for. And even if the answer to that is, for fun, then That's great. And then you'll be able to kind of take the pressure off a lot. You know, you won't have this overall thing. You're just doing it for yourself. So I love it.
Yeah.
And you can find Sergio on his website. That is themainloop.com. There you can find his blog and his store. On Facebook, he is Sergio Lopez Fine Art. And on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube, he is Main Loop. And I also, definitely check out his YouTube channel too. I love your videos, man, because you just sit there and you show how you paint, you know, like you show the technique, and, you know, you can really learn a lot from it.
Oh, awesome.
A great resource. Thanks for doing that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad that people are getting a lot out of it.
Absolutely. Sergio, thank you again so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Sergio. And guys, Sergio is being featured figurative artists that you should really check out if you are in that area. And you can find information about that at yourcreativepush.com/themainloop. You know, he is so right. You really do need to figure out why you want to be an artist, or why you want to do whatever creative passion that brings you to this show to listen, to get that push. Why do you want to do it? Is it to make money? Is it to express yourself? Is it just for fun? Is it a form of therapy? Is it a way for you to get your emotions out there? Is it a way for you to connect to other people? It's a really important question to ask yourself. Why do you do it? And like Sergio said, that will help you to really define what you want to get out of your art. And it's totally cool if your goals change as your creative pursuit changes, as you get better, as you dive deeper and deeper into whatever it is that you're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to start out as something you're doing to completely change your life. It could just be for fun. And then as you get better and better at it, and as people start to see your work and maybe even offer you money for it, you might decide to audible and change your strategy. It's happened with almost every professional artist that we've talked to on this show. It's starting to happen to me, and it's totally fine. But definitely today, before you sit down to get to work, or if you happen to be already working, I know a lot of you like to listen while you work, take a moment and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is this bringing to my life? And it should show you a set of directions, a roadmap, if you will, and hopefully you'll find yourself on the right path. That is all I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening. We've got a great week lined up for you next week, but hopefully you're inspired to go into this weekend and be productive and get your work done. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Take care. Bye.